Welcome to our series on improving teacher candidate learning through a practice-based approach. Practice-based teacher education is an approach to preparing novice teachers that focuses on the importance of developing novices' ability to enact teaching practices. But why is practice so important to preparing teacher candidates? Do you remember the first time you learned to drive, play an instrument, implement a curriculum? Think back to what your performance was like. It was probably kind of clumsy. You had to spend a lot of cognitive effort thinking about what you were going to do next. But as you practiced, what happened cognitively? You probably didn't have to remember to do certain things because they were so automatic. And it gave you time to think about situations that might arise. Like, for instance, while you're driving, you might have had the opportunity to think about, avoiding a pothole or avoiding ice on a road because you didn't have to think about all the mechanics while you were driving. The same thing happens for teachers. When you learn certain routines and you know them well, like passing out materials and getting students to participate, then you can focus more carefully and thoughtfully about what individual students are doing and respond to them. So why is practice important? It's important for the reasons I just articulated, but what happens is it allows for the development of fluent performance. And then as you work with students, you begin to see patterns. For instance, when I was a teacher and providing math instruction, I could begin to see patterns in students' misconceptions, and I could proactively address those issues in my instruction before I started to teach. This ability that I'm developing is called situated knowledge, and that's what practice allows for. So the aim of practice is, one, to reduce cognitive load by learning certain routines to fluency. But what that allows for in practice is then to increase your reflection and problem solving. I could think more thoughtfully about my students once I knew my routines and I had some patterns of how they might respond. I could think more carefully about them. So at Cedar, we have put together a series of practice-based learning opportunities that you can use as a teacher educator or a professional development provider. You can find these if you go to resources and tools and pull down that menu. You will see the practice-based learning opportunities. Each of the practice-based learning opportunities incorporates one or more of these features. For instance, modeling. Modeling is really important because it helps you to understand how to engage in a practice, like the high leverage practice of explicit instruction. The other opportunity that is embedded in many of the PLOs is giving feedback. So once the candidates do something or the teachers engage in a practice, then there's a process for giving them careful feedback. Feedback allows you to understand what it looks like when you're doing a practice well in a classroom, when you're enacting it well. Another feature of many of the PLOs is to analyze your own performance and that of other teachers or teacher candidates' performance. Structured analysis helps candidates look more carefully and teachers at the practices they're using. And then finally, there are opportunities for self-reflection built in so that you can learn to see on your own how you're engaging in practices and how they're affecting the students that you're teaching. Remember, it isn't just the performance of the practice that's important. It's how it impacts the students and whether or not you need to modify or adapt the practice in some way to better support their learning. For each of our practice-based learning opportunities, those 4 features are built into this McDonald's learning cycle that we've used. For one, in the McDonald's learning cycle, the first part that you want to do is to help the candidates or the teachers understand the practice. And it could be a high leverage practice or an evidence-based practice like a decoding strategy or summarizing text. In the understanding part of the practice-based learning opportunity, there's background information, but also modeling to show candidates and teachers how to implement the practice effectively. Then some of the PLOs move candidates into planning and rehearsing the strategy. This is where you develop fluency as a candidate or a teacher. And each of these planning and rehearsing strategies also have analysis and self-reflection built into them. And many of them allow you to enact the practice either with simulated students or your peers or real students in a classroom. Then the last part of the learning cycle is to analyze and revise what you're doing and then go through the process again. This McDonald's learning cycle is important to use the practice-based learning opportunities in a way that you can cycle teacher candidates and teachers through each phase of the learning cycle. Each practice-based learning opportunity that you can find on our website has these components, in addition to having the 4 features and either being situated in one or more phases of McDonald's learning cycle. One is prerequisite knowledge. That's where you develop the knowledge of the practice, the understanding that I just talked about. The second is planning, except for a couple of the PLOs, which I will share with you next. And then implementing the practice, and then debriefing and reflecting on the practice. These are some of the practice-based learning opportunities in these series that you can learn more about. Structured video analysis involves modeling of the practice and then reflecting and analyzing it. Micro-teaching involves enacting the process. It is very similar to structured simulated interactions and simulated in environments that are done through mixed reality. All of those help candidates understand the practice, rehearse the practice, and then analyze and reflect on their performance. Performance-based feedback, which is squarely in the phase on analysis and then revision and receiving feedback on something that you're likely doing in one of these simulated interactions or live with students. And then lesson study, which is done in authentic settings with real students, and it involves all phases of McDonald's learning cycle. It's important to know that the practices that we've highlighted are supported by research on the role that practice-based learning plays in both teacher candidates' development and teachers' development. Practice-based learning opportunities have been shown to increase candidates' knowledge, improve their instruction and assessment practices, improve their interactions with students, and increase P through 12 student achievement. For further information, I would recommend that you go to our website. You can go directly there with this link. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, Mary Brownell, or other colleagues at Cedar. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the practice-based learning opportunities.